Great. Well, at 31 past, and I know that this will be the first session of lots of people's OECD Garment Forum this year, we'll kick off. Thank you so much for joining us and making the time today. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Lara Strangways. I lead the Business and Human Rights team at Global Rights Compliance. Global Rights Compliance is an international law and development foundation. We're based in The Hague, actually, from where I'm calling you today. And we lead a number of multi-stakeholder programs, including this program that we run along with our partners who are here today on the call in Pakistan. I've seen the list of people we have in the room today, and it's genuinely really great to see such a mixture of practitioners. We have organizers, advocates, brands, and also some policy folks in the room today to discuss can digital community-based monitoring systems make remedy more accessible and effective? Lessons from Pakistan's garment sector. And these really are the lessons that we have seen throughout the work on this program and through the continuous hard work of those organizations that are here that we are lucky enough to partner with on this program over the course of the last 3.5 years. And we have been running this program since October 22 and really have had some very interesting insights that have come out of this program. I think one of our speakers today will take you through a little bit more about what the program was about. But just a quick few admin pieces. The session will be about 60 minutes long. It's being recorded, and we will circulate the recording afterwards and any resources that are put into the chat. So I'm just going to quickly introduce our speakers today. We have Khalid Mahmood. Khalid has worked for the Labour Education Foundation since 1996 in Pakistan and has served as the director since 2001. LEF, as otherwise known, is focused on the objective of building a democratic labour movement in Pakistan. Khalid also works with the Clean Clothes Campaign, CCC, as the Regional Urgent Appeal Coordinator for South Asia and is a member of the Executive Committee of the International Federation of Workers' Education Associations. We're also joined by Abbas Haider, who is a committed labour rights advocate and human rights defender with over 20 years of experience working to improve the lives of workers in Pakistan. He serves currently as the Executive Director at the Pakistan Institute of Labour Education and Research, otherwise known as PILA, where he helps guide the organisation's work on labour governance, policy engagement, and civil society strengthening. We're also joined by Anna Bayer, who's a policy lead at Labour Behind the Label, where she drives strategic efforts to improve working conditions and strengthen access to labour rights across global fashion supply chains. With over a decade's experience in research, campaigning, and corporate accountability, Anna works closely with brands, industry bodies, and policymakers to advance ethical standards in the garment sector. And finally, we're joined by Maimana Khattak, who is a legal advisor at Global Rights Compliance and a Fulbright scholar and lawyer working at the intersection of law, policy, and development in Pakistan, with a particular focus on business and human rights. She's worked closely with the government, including the Ministry of Human Rights in Pakistan, as well as international partners, contributing to policy development, legal analysis, and capacity building initiatives under Pakistan's National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. So welcome to all of our speakers. I am going to hand over to each speaker one by one, but perhaps we can start with you, Khalid.
Thank you very much, Anna and GRC, for giving me this opportunity to talk in this forum. I hope my presentation will be on the screen. Is Khaldun sharing my presentation?
Yes, I'm sure he's just getting it up. Perhaps you would like to kick off, and I'm sure he'll put it up on the screen shortly.
Yeah. So the yeah, thank you, Khaldun. So the digital community-based monitoring system that we are implementing in Pakistan right now is a new kind of initiative which is supported or which is based upon the work of labor rights organizations and trade in Pakistan since last almost 2 to 3 decades. And I can tell you that without the trust and the confidence that is built by these organizations' work in the communities and among the workers, this kind of digital monitoring could not have become possible. So we, the partners working on this project, have a long experience of working with the workers in the garment supply chain and with other sectors of workers as well. Uh, I'm trying to run my Khaldun, can you go to the next slide or give me the access?
You already have control. Can you just switch? Yep.
Now
Yes.
I can. Yes. So why this project started and what is basically the gap that we are trying to fill through this project? The worker voices in Pakistan garment industry are missing. This is no secret. Why? Because the lack of freedom of association and collective bargaining in the industry, the weak implementation of the labor laws in Pakistan, and of course, there is a lack of political will that is resulting in this situation. So the workers' voices are not reaching the remedy pathways. The remedy pathways linked with the implementation of the labor laws are not working. The remedy pathways linked with the global supply chain, where the international brands and the buyers have their own tools, or the due diligence mechanism being developed, are not becoming effective because the workers do not have voice inside the factories. So that's why we are working with the workers through their communities, and we are trying to build that kind of confidence among the workers that they reach out to us and they inform us about happening within the industry and how we can help them in reaching out to the mechanisms. So this is the context or background in which we're trying to work. I will give you examples where you can see that how this project is resulting in some good, creating some good examples. This is a very small project. This is not a project which can cater the needs of all the workers in the garment supply chain in at least three biggest industrial cities of Pakistan: Karachi, Lahore, and Faisalabad. But you can get an idea how this kind of monitoring system can work. We have developed legal aid clinics or legal aid centers, you can say. We have developed women cafes. We have a team of trained paralegal staff alongside with the field mobilizers. And then we have a digital tool, which is a mobile app. It's a standardized mobile app where all the paralegals and our team members are putting information received by the workers. This is, you can say, this is a hybrid system. And why we have developed this kind of system? Again, the problem is that the workers are not able to reach out to the remedy pathways. They do not have that kind of confidence, and also they do not have that kind of awareness about the labor laws and their rights. So that's why this hybrid system is helping us in getting the violations information, and also supporting workers to reach to the institutions or the remedial pathways like the Labor Department, the Payment of Wages Authority, and the Labor Court. Also, the Social Security and the old age benefit institutions, which is linked with the pensions. Sometimes we do have success in facilitating the factory level engagement of the workers, even if there is no union and no collective bargaining is happening. But through our paralegals team, the factories are also engaging with the workers directly, and we are supporting the workers in negotiating with the factory. And then we also have this opportunity available to escalate to the buyers and to use other leverage points where the buyers can also be part of this kind of negotiation and try to work with us to solve the issues faced by the workers. This is just an example of from last 2 years of labor education foundations of work through the legal aid centers. You can see the numbers here that more than 2,000 cases are uploaded, and within the last 2 years, from the total number, it's more than 5,000. The 15,000 workers have actually been able to reach our legal aid clinics and women cafes, and 21% of them were women. So this shows us that if there is a confidence among the workers, if there is a regular follow-up on their cases, the workers do want to come to you and tell you about the violations are happening in the factory. So you can imagine if this kind of mechanism is available inside the factories through the freedom of association, the workers are willing to talk about, workers need remedies, and workers are willing to participate in this kind of process where they can sit and inform you what's happening. Our paralegal and field staff, they visit the factories, they go outside the factory gates during before the start of the shifts, during the lunch break and the end of the shifts, and they do try to engage with the workers, they do try to give information to the workers about the legal aid clinics so that the workers are able to come back to the clinics their issues. We do a lot of activities at the legal aid clinics as well, orientation sessions, the trainings. We get the workers alongside with our team to the labor department, to the labor courts. Now, the biggest issue that we have seen about the violations that are coming up is about wages, of course. Workers are facing a lot of discrimination. Workers are facing a lot of problems in the implementation of the minimum wage, the working hours, so that, and then the overtime payments. These are the biggest problems that we have seen coming up through the data that we have received. And then the problems like harassment and the discrimination of the wages among men and women. These are also some kind of issues we are looking at the data, and we are finding out that these issues are also coming up. And the dismissals, of course, if the workers are trying to talk about their rights in the factories, then there are dismissals as well, and these cases are also taken up with the concerned authorities. If I can see in the next slide. Yeah. So this is just an example of the data. I will go to the next slide, keeping in with the time. Now, what kind of remedies we have been able to achieve through our system? I think I have to go back. Yeah. One more. Sorry, internet speed is, yeah, here. So you can see that in the month of July 2025, this is just an example. We were able to get remedy of more than 16 million Pakistani rupees in terms of gratuity and severance and pensions payments. only in the month of August, in a 14 workers case, 50 million rupees were paid in gratuity and severance. And in 1 month of June, around 500,000 of payments were made in the wage compensation. So this gives you an example that if there is a clear evidence, if there is a recording of the violations with the evidence, and if we are able to reach out and help the workers in reaching out to the institutions, remedy a possibility that are able to get remedies. And there are a lot of cases where the dismissed workers were able to be reinstated. In cases of harassment as well, the accused were dismissed, the culprits were dismissed. And imagine if this kind of system with the trust and confidence building among the workers can result in these kind of achievements, which are very, very few achievements. But imagine if that is a trust built inside the factories with workers having a free voice, then what cannot be achieved when it comes to the rights of the workers and the protection of their rights. I have few recommendations in the end, which I would like to really, yeah. So with the governments, of course, we are dealing on the daily basis, and we would like to the government to take steps of strengthening the labor inspections and protecting the whistleblowers. But for the brands and buyers, I want to focus more that they have to cooperate with the trusted local channels. In absence of the trade unions in the factories, they have to trust other labor organizations, and they have to at least look for the information where the workers have trust, and these kind of institutions can be utilized. And they have to build do not harm escalation rules, because the workers are so afraid, and workers, if the workers are not able to talk, then these violations cannot to come up, and nobody will be able to know what is happening inside the factories. And then also they need to track the remedy completion. It's not just that they have to listen to the violations once, but they have to track the whole process. And also they need to look if they are investing in building their own mechanisms, why not go for a broader consultation? Why not involve some other stakeholders as well and try to build a mechanism where the workers have trust, where there are independent voices are heard, and where of course, the remedies are achievable. So I think I should end here. I have maybe taken a little more than my allocated time. I will be available for the questions if there are any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khaled. And yeah, indeed, there are questions already coming through that we'll leave to the end to discuss. Some really interesting reflections on the kind of model that we have as multiple organizations undertaken, and with your work based in Lahore and Faisalabad, really interesting to see the impact as well, in terms of remedy. And we can come back to that at the end, because I think that there is some interesting learnings that we have seen as a group in terms of remedy, particularly. But now I'll move on to Abbas. Are you there?
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Something for
Hi.
me to, yeah, waiting for my slide to be shown up on the screen.
Oh, we're struggling to hear you a little bit. Um,
Sheldon, can you please put on my slide? Yeah, thank you. So, thank you, Lara and the GRC for providing us the chance to speak on this important forum. So, I would like to start with the baseline study that we performed at the beginning of this project. It was in back in 2022. I would also like to give an overview that why it was needed to perform a baseline before starting our work. The textile and garment sector is one of the biggest sector of Pakistan. The labor force survey has stated that in 2024 and 25, the total workforce of Pakistan is about 83.1 million, and out of which 25 million of the workers are related with the textile and garment sector. It means that 30% of the total workforce is related with textile and garment sector. So we started this baseline survey in the three major industrial hubs of Pakistan. It was in Karachi for Sindh province and Faisalabad and Lahore for Punjab province. So the major issue that was highlighted in the survey was there were no employment letters issued to the worker. Workers were working for the excessive hours, by law, they have to work for 8 hours, but they have been working for 12 to 14 hours. The restriction of freedom of association was there. The workers were forced to do overtime, and the most important thing that the gender-based violence and harassment was there with the female workers who were working in the textile and garment sector. And like Khalid has mentioned, there was also a issue that was reported across surveillance and the gratuity violence. So then we started. Yeah, let me. Yeah, sorry. So then we started documenting the cases. So with the MyVox app, we started the digital registration of the labor complaints. We also ensured that to maintain the confidentiality and the data security, uh, the name of no name of the individual was reported in the MyVox app. It was only reported by the suppliers and the violation type. We started our following up with the relevant departments. We started putting up these cases with the labor department, with the payment of wage authorities, with the labor code, and the cases that were reported by the female workers of sexual harassment. We reported those cases with the Ombudsperson Office for the Sexual Harassment at Workplace. Throughout this period, we have successfully able to secure 51 million PKR for the gratuity and the surveillance. It was, and also for the restatements. It was all during this project period from 22 till now. Like Tyler has a long-standing credibility and working experience with the civil society and trade union organization. We have been working since last 40 years. So we started our engagement with the trade unions and the civil society organization, like we have performed in the initial stage of the baseline study, and then we started registration the case. After that, we started engaging with the relevant stakeholders. We After collecting data, we sorry, it is, yeah, yeah, sorry, my slide has stopped. Excuse me. Yeah. So we started consultation with the relevant stakeholders. We held majority of the cases was reported as of wage violation. So we held wage conference back in January 31st, and it was well attended by the relevant stakeholders, with the government, the trade union, civil society, our international campaign partners. All of the workers were present there. Like previously said, we performed a survey in the beginning. So there was it was an impression that the majority of the workers are getting the lower wages, and they are working and living with borrowing money from others, like they are in the debt. So we with the civil society organization, we arranged a seminar on the economic crisis, the impact of economic crisis on the workers. It was with the one of the leading organization of Pakistan, Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. We started a series of training. It was regarding the labor rights and the workplace harassment. Like I said before, the The number of cases that was reported in our paralegal cases, the majority of the cases was of wage violation, and the other one was from the female workers harassment at the workplace. So we started availing workers for their rights, and also we started making them aware the law, how to make the person who is being harassed to make that person sue under the law. The most successful thing I must say that we have built throughout this period is that we have built successfully alliance with the brands and suppliers. I would like to share a success story. There is a leading Pakistani textile supplier partner. They have partnered with our paralegal team to establish a license mechanism for faster grievance resolution and the compensation. The company has also shown their interest in launching the first apprenticeship program, and this sort our teams help the pilot paralegals help for guidance to ensure the alignment with the fair labor practices. Uh, I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Some really interesting lessons learned also from the work that Pila has been doing through this program in Karachi. So thank you for that, Abbas. Anna, can I turn to you next?
Unmute myself. Great. Yeah. Great. So thanks for letting me speak. So Labour Behind the Label's been working alongside the worker advice centres in Lahore and Faisalabad and Karachi to raise awareness of the systemic grievances that have been recorded by the paralegals and to engage where relevant with I don't know how to do this. There we go. There we go. To engage where relevant with the buyers from the centres linked to the buyers linked to the factories. And so I'm going to use my 6 minutes to share some reflections about what we've observed from current brand monitoring processes and maybe how these could be strengthened by greater engagement with the kind of data that is being produced by this project to triangulate the approach and to provide some more accurate and current worker voices into remedy pathways. So we started this project really by trying to take lots of information to the brands about the violations, but there wasn't a lot of trust that the information we were providing was accurate because the audits that the brands were conducting was not providing back the same information. And I think we then spent a bit of time diving into talking to workers about what their experience was of audits and what happens when auditors come into the factory. And I think it's a fairly open secret and common knowledge that audit coaching is a very regular occurrence, that all staff meetings are held to tell workers you have to say this to auditors or you have to approach auditors in this way. But I think we also learned a lot more about the surveillance within a factory and cameras making it impossible for workers to at any point be honest, that even if they're taken into a room, it's fairly obvious who has gone into that room, and that there's never really the possibility for anonymity within a factory setting. And also, just anecdotally, we asked lots of workers about what happens if you do then speak up to auditors. This is from an artistic milliner's worker. We all know that if you file a complaint, you will be terminated. And so and also that was really backed up by the data that was coming through the centres with people talking about their gate being stopped if they raised a grievance or if they engaged with a supplier. There was a lot of cases that come through the centres that are about dismissals linked to trying to improve a condition. And there's I think that really at the root of a lot of this is the culture of fear over job losses and dismissals. Because we know that supervisor harassment is common, but I think it's underreported. Maybe the minute ways in which harassment also builds up, where workers are afraid of losing their jobs because of minor threats or things that are said. And it's in a employment context where there's 7.1% unemployment. It's a 21-year high in Pakistan at the moment. It is really understandable that people are afraid of losing their jobs. And comparatively, while jobs in the garment industry are not well paid, and if we think internationally to look at whether it meets human rights standards, about whether the minimum wages in the Pakistan garment industry are enough to be able to support a family, they are not. It's comparative to other low paid industries in Pakistan where there's not a major qualification threshold. Workers do see the garment industry as good employment. And so I think this fear over job losses and the culture of dismissal linked to raising your head above the parapet, saying something, trying to follow through a grievance, that really makes it very difficult for worker voices to be heard in any factory-based monitoring system. We also saw that there's been kind of a lack of offsite interviews, a lack of engagement with trade unions and worker support organisations, and we think that that is where there's potential for progress and for engagement with programmes like this. So we, as I said before, we started back in 22, 23, trying to bring information to the brands based on all of the complaints that were brought through the centres to say, there's mass non-compliance around these issues and these issues, and this is what's coming through. But I think there was not a lot of agreement with the brands or trust in the data that we were supplying. And so they had to go and then check, and then would come back to us to go on case by case to see whether what their findings were the same as our findings. So we made a choice to take a slightly different approach and try and gather more granular data, particularly focused on wages, around 8 workplaces, because the centres cover hundreds of workplaces. And I think we were bringing a few complaints from a lot of different workplaces. So we decided to bring research data from 8 workplaces to be really clear about the evidence that we had gathered, and to have a better basis on which to discuss. So the project teams conducted a wage survey for 255 workers over 8 major suppliers. The findings were that 65% of workers were not receiving a payslip, 75% reported forced overtime, 62% not being paid the double overtime rate, 35% not getting social security, and then 65% of workers not being paid the minimum wage when taking into account their skill level and their overtime. And so we were able to then take this data that was based on long form interviews with a significant chunk of a significant number of people, and then discuss that with buyers. Around half of the brands that we discussed it with agreed that the pictures were like the data that we found was likely to represent a true picture of the conditions. But there really is a difference between the types of auditing processes that some buyers undertake and that others do. The third-party auditors in general did not uncover similar findings to ours, whereas the in-house auditing teams were frank that the violations that they saw that we were presenting did exist, and that they were working on caps with the employers to remedy. So we have been trying to have a broader discussion with the buyers from each of those suppliers to talk about how they can collectively use their buying power to push for change, particularly on things like how to get pay slips into workers' hands, how to get appointment letters into workers' hands, like really basic legal compliance points, and how these can be remedied better, because that was what was really being reflected back through the complaints that were coming from the centres. And I guess let me just change the slide. There we go. Our findings on this, or our solutions that we really want to push, is that, as Khalid said, as Abba said, there's a need for trusted worker support organizations as this third point of data, because I think that there's an echo chamber situation happening currently with the way that auditing happens and the lack of worker voice that is coming into those monitoring systems. It's really important that the rights holders, the opinion of the rights holders, are central and a primary element of working out whether there are violations happening within factories. And I think what is happening at the moment is a lot of buyers are going down the route of apps or grievance mechanisms that are based on these technological solutions, and maybe we will get more into this in the Q&A. But I want to emphasize the trust and safety and expertise that is at the base of the thing that is being presented here today as a community-based grievance, or a community-based mechanism where there's trust and long-term expertise from labour rights organisations who are on the ground, who have been building relationships in communities for decades, and this app as a way of trying to pull their data together and make it manageable and digestible for multiple stakeholders is the add-on that is making that interesting and effective. Whereas I think some of the tack-on apps that some buyers are trying to push at the moment, maybe from the testimony that we've heard from workers, don't have the same trust behind them, therefore are unlikely to get the same kind of engagement or results or accuracy of worker voice coming through it. I just to give a really brief example, even the Accord complaint mechanism, despite distributing over 150,000 copies of their complaint booklet, has only so far had about 280 complaints, so a 0.19% take-up rate. And I think my point is that trust really takes time to build, and the Accord complaints mechanism will be successful over time. But what we're saying is bringing complaints mechanisms or access to remedy pathways that are based on trust is really, really important. And so the message really is that from our research and our engagement over this is that collaboration with trusted local partners who are offering labour support also provides not only reliable feedback for buyers, but also can strengthen access to remedy. That's my points.
Thank you, Anna. I really don't think the trust point can be overemphasized. And indeed, I didn't explain at the beginning, but this whole program was born out of this idea that we need an alternative method of information collection, also to formalize the role of the brilliant organizations that are doing their work on the ground day to day as part of the due diligence process, and the 5,500 complaints and growing every day and that are coming through the centres that the partners are operating in country is really a testament to the fact that when people are given people that they know and that they trust to talk to and confide in about issues that they're experiencing at work, you do see a much higher uptake rate than with mechanisms that typically don't have a face or that are more difficult for workers to access. So thank you. Maimana, can I turn to you now? Oh, I don't think we can hear you just yet.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Now you can hear me. Good, great. Thank you, Lara, for that. And good afternoon, good morning, everybody. So we had some really nice round of presentations where they all talked about the app and how it works and the kind of worker grievances that they had witnessed and the app was addressing. So I'd like to talk a little more about the formal judicial and non-judicial remedial pathways that exist in Pakistan. So Pakistan is a layered has layered judicial processes where or remediation pathways. So there are judicial routes and there are quasi-judicial routes. But what we learned through MyVox is that most of these workers who were reporting their grievances found these to be a little difficult to access. By the judicial routes include labor courts and high courts, whereas quasi-judicial routes include labor departments and tribunals, and they all have their own respective jurisdictions where they deal with different cases. But while we were receiving all these complaints on our app, we found that three factors stood out. First, the complexity. Legal and administrative procedures were difficult for workers to navigate without support, and that is where our paralegals came in and were much helpful. Many were unfamiliar with filing requirements or jurisdictional rules or documentations that were required. And then the second major problem was the procedural delays. Cases remain pending in our courts for months or even years. And a lot of labor courts face a lot of severe backlogs as well. So workers who were relying on timely wages. This delay in the process was very costly for them. And the third was with respect to quasi-judicial and non-state-based mechanisms, for example, the labor departments, they were often, we found, under-resourced and understaffed, which affected their ability to respond promptly and consistently to these complaints. So there was a gap in between, and that gap, in order to address that gap, this app was developed so that we can complement these existing systems with an approach that is accessible and immediate and safe for workers. And in that, with that mindset, this app was used. I think already people have talked about the how it works. So I'll skip to that and I'll quickly go into what actually the insights that were gathered from this report. So since its launch, although it was launched in both only two provinces of Pakistan, Punjab and Sindh, MyVox gave us a data-driven view into realities on the ground. As pointed out by Mr. Khalid earlier, in these 2 years, the platform has documented over 11,000 violations from over more than 5,000 workers. And there are a few categories that we can see that exist in them. So the primary chunk or the single largest category of violations that we saw were wage related, which included issues like delayed payments, unpaid overtime, and sub-minimum wages. And the next biggest category was the withdrawal of or withholding of employment benefits. Primarily, this involved social security issues or pension contributions. And then the third major category was contract irregularities. And within that, I think 97% of their complaints were that the workers in the garment industry did not have any written contracts at all to begin with. And the last, but like a major chunk, was 6% of the reports were for harassment, and a number of, which also we believe is also because it was reported less due to fear of retaliation, as already mentioned by the previous panelists. So when we had all these insights, how does it help? How did it help GRC, especially in making or advocating for rights in the garment sector? We recently were in the process of drafting a report on the routes to remedy, which are available to garment workers in Pakistan. And this real world data became the cornerstone for our policy report. This data quantified the positive impact of several things, like already mentioned by our panelists, of the impact of union involvement, showing that cases with union support had a higher rate of successful remediation. It also showed that if this app is upscaled to other provinces, then this could be a really beneficial platform for workers to get grievances. Secondly, I skipped an app. And it also showed how accessibility is really made easier and much more. Yeah, thank you. So it also showed that there is a need for strengthening coordination between community mechanisms and official bodies, and scaling of these tools to other provinces can help us achieve that. And secondly, uh, it also showed that with this sort of data, it enabled us to draft targeted evidence-based recommendations, which also included like creating alternate routes to remedy, which are more accessible and more timely for that matter. And yeah, so this is how, because of this, it helped us remove or at least address the trust barrier that we've been mentioning again and again here, on how the workers themselves feel a little hesitant in reporting within the organizations, the kind of complaints they have. And this third, or a bridge that I've called it as, helps give them an access to remedy that the traditional or the state-based mechanism was perhaps struggling to provide. So that's all from my side. Thank you, Lara.
Thank you, Maimana. Thank you. And yeah, just to reiterate what Maimana was saying, we're in the final stages of editorial before publication of the Routes to Remedy report that will kind of summarize a lot of the learnings about remedy for workers in the garment sector in Pakistan, and and we hope that that will go live this time next week. So we will send out a follow-up email that will have a link to that when it goes out. Great. Well, we have thankfully 13 more minutes where we're going to try and dig into some of these questions that are being asked by various attendees to the webinar. I think we'll start from the top. Khalid, this was a question to you about remedial pathways and more precisely, who decides what remedial pathways are taken?
Yeah, interesting question. First of all, our paralegals are trained. They know the basic laws and the procedures uh, to adopt. So it depends totally on the case. And of course, if the worker is willing to go to some remedial pathways, then of course it is done. It is primarily the consent of the workers. In any kind of violation, the Labor Department is there. So most of the cases are initiated writing an application to the Labor Department. And if they are solely concerned about the Social Security or the old age benefit institution, these kind of things are taken up to those departments. But mainly it's the consultation between the paralegal team and the workers, and then with the consent of the workers, it is decided. Yeah.
Thank you. And I want to go to the next question and pose it to both you and Abbas because it's getting into a little bit more detail about how this program functions and the mechanics. The question is also how many factories are you covering? Do you engage factories with these services? How many staff do you have to support running these services? And essentially, a question about the mechanics of the program. Obviously, this is a community-based monitoring program rather than a factory-based program, which makes it quite different from other initiatives. But maybe you can get into a little bit more detail about that engagement with the factories and how many staff you have supporting these services.
I can start with that. I mean, I'm giving you just an example. This is a very small project run in 3 cities, Karachi, Lahore, and Faisalabad. 4 organizations are partnering in this project from Pakistan, and of course, LBL is there from the global level. Every paralegal center has one paralegal staff and one field staff. And then there are like the centers are based in the areas which are near the industrial areas and or the where the workers mostly are residing. So in this way, we have developed jointly these paralegal centers, and about the number of the centers and I mean, it's still, if you consider the industry, I would say it's a very small effort of creating an example. Actually, it's a pilot project. The factories access is also very difficult. We have tried in last 2.5 years to reach to almost majority of the factories where the international brands are producing in all the three cities, but still it's a huge industry, and still there are a lot of factories from where the workers are not able to reach to us, or we are not able to reach to them. Abbas, if you can add into that.
Yeah, thank you. Like Khalid has already mentioned, we are working in the four industrial zones of Karachi. Karachi is a big industrial hub. So, we are operating in four major industrial areas. One is Korangi, Talandi, Orangi, and New Karachi. And each of the office has two staff, the paralegal and the organizer. We have the same kind of mechanism like what Khalid has said. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And maybe Anna, I'll go to you next. How do you identify trusted local partners? Someone's commented in countries like China, this is very challenging.
I mean, this is a pilot project that is based in Pakistan. I mean, if you are thinking about how we do this globally, I think that is a really interesting challenge. I think my response on China is if you if you can't ensure to have accurate worker voices and freedom of association in the country, you should be considering whether you should be sourcing from that region at all. But it's it's an ongoing challenge, obviously, to try and reach out to worker support organizations in China, and that's it's a big uphill struggle. But I don't think it means that brands should just say, okay, well then it's too difficult, and we shouldn't try and engage at all. I think we should try and like build the capacity of organizations in China and work alongside them where you can.
Great, thank you. And I obviously agree in terms of building out that network of trusted partners in countries that you source from is obviously a really important part of due diligence in terms of stakeholder engagement, albeit that some countries that's easier to do than others. I wonder whether we can just go to a question now that's maybe a nice segue about effective, sustainable ways to fund community-based monitoring initiatives that also avoid conflicts of interest. This person's specific concern is that if a program is funded by brands, what happens when they are no longer sourcing from the same location? And I should say that this is obviously a question that we're all grappling with. This is a program that was originally government funded, but with the success of the model, this is a question we're looking at very closely. Maybe I can hand it to Khaled, and then we can go round. I'd be grateful for everybody's opinions on this, of course.
I think the most important question here is why this kind of program is needed. If there is a situation, imagine if there is a situation where there is freedom of association in the factory, where the workers have a free voice in the factory, they do not need to go outside of the factory and find a trusted person or organization where they go and file their case. The actual problem lies within the factory. So if the brands are interested in solving this situation and having a proper due diligence, they should first work on their mechanism inside the factory. Yes, they need help from us, organizations from outside, or the international organizations. We are willing to work with them. We will be helping them, but we have to improve the situation first inside the factory so that workers have a decent space available, free space available to talk about the violations happening in the factory. That is most important thing. Every program like this, if it is dependent on funding from the independent organizations or from the government or the brands, it is compromised at some level. I think we need to create examples, but the brands need to work more closely with different stakeholders to improve the situation in the factory so that the voices are heard independently, freely inside the factory. That's the best option I think available. Otherwise, we will be spending millions of rupees on these kind of projects, but it will only be dependent on the external actors, and that is again, I think it's not a complete solution.
Abbas, would you like to add to that?
That the- I see no harm if, firstly, I will say if the brand are going to take the responsibility to run this program, because we have set an example. I mean, this kind of program should run. The importance of program is that throughout this period we have successfully able to secure, I mean, the wages and all the payment that were due on part of the suppliers. So I think there is no harm in by my point of view, no harm in obtaining the money from the brand if they are willing to pay. Yeah.
Anna, is there anything you would like to add to that? Okay. And Maimana?
Yeah, so nothing in particular to that, but I think this is a good sort of, I'd just like to highlight that is why perhaps the world is now moving towards mandatory HRDD legislation, right? Or the call for the countries or nations to now introduce these laws so that they're not dependent on such isolated or one-off incidents, but as a natural process, every company and every worker factory is required to do this due diligence, incorporate the voices of the communities as well as the workers within their policies, and then have this available redress mechanism, publicly available redress mechanism, where they can file their reports and all. And I think it adds into this, like, that is why perhaps the shift or the focus now internationally, globally, and at least in Pakistan's, the national action plan that we had on business and human rights envisions, or at least checks the feasibility of having this HRDT, mandatory HRDT legislation in Pakistan. I thought I'll just add that in for context. Thank you.
Thank you. A really important point to contextualize this conversation. And a final, in the last 2 minutes, there's a final question. You mentioned a hybrid approach involving both a digital platform and in-person groups or centers. Which of these components, digital or in-person, prove most effective in achieving the program results?
I call it hybrid because it is a combination of the first of all in person. I mean, it's totally depend on the person, the worker who is trusting us and who is coming to us and talk about the violation happening inside the factory. And then we are using a mobile app to record it in a standardized format so that there is information alongside with the evidences available, and our team helps workers to identify the evidences and how to then utilize. So it starts from the person itself, then recording on mobile app, and then moving forward to the remedial mechanisms and pathways alongside with the workers, and then follow up as well. So that's the whole kind of system, and that's why I call it hybrid, because it involves the technology and the in-person and the institutional framework as well.
Thank you. And I think that that's a good place for us to end the session. And we are at time. I want to thank you all for attending today. I know that, as I said, it's the beginning of the OECD Garment Forum this week. So for all of you that are attending sessions online or in person, wishing you a good week ahead. If you want further information about this program, you can reach out to any of the speakers that are here today. And there's also some information that we have put in the chat. We will send around the recording shortly after the close of this session. So thank you again. Thank you to all the speakers for joining and giving us insights into the program. And yes, wishing you a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.